Floyd House Flicks just wrapped up watching Across 110th Street. Yaphet Kotto, Anthony Quinn, a film directed by Barry Shear in 1972. This movie was a big deal when I was a kid. Um, it was shot not too far from where I grew up in Harlem, New York. Um, Synopsis. I mean, a synopsis of this film. When a crew of gun toting gangsters knock over a mafia racket in Harlem. Think. That was like when a crew of gun-toting gangsters knock over a mafia racket in Harlem, their plans get blown to hell, and the crib gets blown to bits. But as the bullets start flying and cops start dying, a pair of New York's finest, Quinn and Cotto, are focused and forced to work together to bring justice to the streets before the mafia brings the ghetto to its knees. Now before the wanted man, the hunted men by the mob, there ain't no way these. I don't know who wrote this. I don't know who wrote this. But again, some of these words, gangsters. It's actually spelled gangsters. Anyway, I'm gonna do this. Whoop. Just with the writing. The movie's dope though. It's a story of back in the day in Harlem, probably current day as well. The Italian mob ran a chunk of Harlem. They ran a lot of Harlem, having to do with like the numbers game, which is where they take the horses at the racetrack and take the numbers of the horses, and whoever wins the numbers, whichever horse's number wins the race, puts together three sets of numbers or three numbers to make. I don't know. I was a little kid back then, but it's like three races in a day, three horses per race. They would have. You have to guess those numbers, and if you hit the number, as they would call it, you would win X amount of money. It was illegal. It's called the numbers game. That when you think of people like all these racketeers like Bumpy Johnson and Dutch Schultz and all these other crime figures in New York City, that's kind of the numbers racket is what they're talking about when they talk about the horses and things like that. So they used to have a lot of these numbers runners. These guys out on the streets go to house, and they go to the old lady's door and knock on her door, and she said, "Give me a 356 straight," and give them like a quarter. And if she won, that quarter is times, I think, times by 90. So she would win whatever. If you gave $1, if you gave $10, it's probably more than that. It's probably, if you hit it straight, it's probably a bunch of numbers, a bunch of money. People always played the numbers in Harlem. It was just normal back in the 70s and early 80s. It was just a normal thing to do, if you will. But in this movie, Anthony Quinn plays a police sergeant. He's an older guy. He's an old school way of doing things. He questions people and he feels like he has to hit them. Especially, I mean, this is in Harlem, so it's mostly black people, and he feels like he has to put his hands on them to get them to respond. And then in comes Yaphet Kotto, who plays a younger police officer, but a detective who's on his way to building his career, and he kind of stands in the way of Anthony Quinn doing what he does. He tries to teach Anthony Quinn a new way of getting it done, which is ridiculous because Anthony Quinn's been doing this, or the character's been doing this for decades, so nothing's going to change there. So again, we go back to three guys who decide that they're going to rob the numbers guys. At the end of the day, the numbers guys get together. They all come to one place. They put all the money they earned together, count it, and it goes back to the bosses, the Italian mob bosses. The money goes back to them, and it's always like a bunch of money. So these three guys decide they're going to rob the place. One guy was two guys dressed up as an officer. One guy in the car. The funny thing about it is um, what's his name? The cat that was in. I think that if I tell, it would just waste time. The officer, one of the officers, he was in a bunch of Spike Lee movies. Another officer was actually he wrote and directed a movie called The Spook Who Sat by the Door. I'm gonna do that next. We're gonna do The Spook Who Sat by the Door. That's a boof, head blown. And there was a driver, and the driver was played by Antonio Fargas. Antonio Fargas, better known as Fly Guy, or better known as uh, Huggy Bear from Starsky and Hutch. Fly Guy is from I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. Huggy Bear, Starsky and Hutch. He played one of the characters, one of the robbers. He was the driver actually. And after they went to hold up the place, there were guns on the table, but none of the guys standing up had guns. He's holding everybody down with a submachine gun. Nobody moved. And the guy that was putting the money in the box, he was excited, he was nervous, he's putting the money in this box, and all of a sudden the box falls down. One guy goes for his gun, the submachine gun goes off, rah, kills everybody. Now, in that everybody, you got 3 mob guys and 2 black guys. And the mob doesn't care if the black guys got killed, of course, but they care that their 3 guys got killed, and now it's on. So now the mob guys are looking for these 3 guys. The cops are looking for these 3 guys. And not to mention, when they leave, they escape the scene, they pull out guns, and cops come running out of no place. They start shooting the cops. So now they've killed 2 cops, 3 mob guys, and 2 guys that were hired, 2 black guys that were hired by the mob to do this job. So now they're wanted. They're wanted men. The character that Antonio Fargas played was a bit of a wild firecracker kind of dude, but he was a goofy because he just wants to sit and get high and spend money and chase women. That's all he wants to do. So everybody else is keeping to themselves, keeping the stash, whatever they got, they hold on to it. He's running the streets, spending money on prostitutes, drugs, parties. He's acting the fool. So of course with that, he stands out. The mob checks in on him and they find him right away and they give him the business. They castrate him. I can stop at castration. They whooped him up. They cut him up, messed him up, castrate him. He's gone. But they got to, before they can get him gone, they tried to get him to talk. Fortunately for them, the other 2, he didn't talk. So they actually had to look for these guys. So now the cops are on them. The mob is on them. Eventually, as the story proceeds, there's, it's a bunch of players and pimps and all types of stuff, but they're all somehow connected to the mob. And then the mob comes through and gets the black guys to go and run errands for them. When you think about this movie, it's sort of like, man, the price that people are willing to accept for their character. And I understand this is gangster shit. This is street shit. Character is never really a conversation. It's never really a conversation. And it's when you look at it in retrospect, it's always like, Jesus Christ, I grew up around a lot of people that were involved in street business. It was normal. I think everybody that grew up on my block can say that. That's just a normal event that happens in New York City and in most urban cities, but I'll speak for New York City. There's a lot of things that happen. A lot of people there's a lot of people that we knew that wind up getting caught up in nonsense and wind up one place or another. I think you can figure those 2 places out. Or, it was just a very dark time in Harlem, New York in the 70s. The music for this movie was amazing. It was done by Bobby Womack. That's a good thing about a lot of these movies in the 70s and 80s too. Most of the 70s, the soundtracks of these movies were phenomenal. Bobby Womack did the entire soundtrack for this one. When you look at movies like Claudine, which is another film I'm going to do, Curtis Mayfield did the soundtrack for that. Superfly, Curtis Mayfield also did the soundtrack for Superfly. Shaft, Isaac Hayes did the soundtrack for Shaft. I mean, the whole soundtrack was done by these cats. I mean, it was fire. It was fire back in the day. But Across 110th Street really came down to these 2 characters, one wanting and being ready to retire, one ambitious guy, but he wasn't trying to force him out of his job, but he's ambitious and he was a good person at heart. He just had a shitty job, you know. The things he had to do, but his courage and his content and his character in this respect would not allow this character, the Anthony Quinn character, to just do crazy shit in front of him. You're not going to do it. But he had his back. He had his back. Anthony Quinn could give a shit about the Yaphet Kotto character. Eventually, they grew to like each other. And eventually, as the story continued, there was a shootout because they got news that there's always some underground character that always knows the streets, and he knows every step of the streets. He knows this guy knows that guy. Hey, I heard it from a little bird, the baba baba baba. Maybe you should go check that out. So he's dropping down on everybody. It's like that dude in like that dude in Belly. They hustling real good. I don't like that shit. I have to drop a dime on them. Like that. There's always something like that, some dude like that in the underbelly of the streets. It is what it is. So someone dropped a note to the Yaphet Kotto character. This guy is held up here. The mob is on their way to go get him. Maybe you should get there first. So they do that. They get there first, or they try to get there first, but the mob beats them to it. Go to get the main character, the main robber. But the main robber still had that semi-automatic machine gun. Back then, it was an automatic machine gun. He let him go. Shot up the mob dudes. And the cop shows up. The guy is pretty much shot by that point. But he's not dead. And then he gets into it with the cops. The cops are there. So now he's shooting at the cops. And the cops is letting off on him. And he's getting shot. He's getting shot left and right. So as the story comes to a conclusion, the robber is shot. The robber has the bag of money that he stole from the number guys. They're on a rooftop. He looks down over the rooftop and he sees a schoolyard full of children. So he takes the satchel of money off his neck, throws it down to the children. Children go crazy. I've been one of those kids in Harlem. When something happens, you don't know what it is for real. But you know everybody else wants it, so you want it too. You're a child. You don't know any better. Bag of candy for all you know. So as the guy's walking across the roof, shot up pretty much, the Anthony Quinn character's walking to him and trips and falls. He drops his gun on the ground. Yaphet Kotto's character, stay down, stay down. He's yelling at him, stay down. And as the robber is just about to shoot the Anthony Quinn character, Yaphet Kotto hits him. Pow! Kills the robber. So now they're on the roof, and then as they make their way down, remember the mob is involved in this. Now the mob, chop one head off. It's like a hydra. Chop one head off, 2 or 3 will return. The pimps and the street hustlers that's connected to the mob are always going to be there no matter what. So they see Anthony Quinn's character, he's a bit shaken, he's staggering around, and Yaphet Kotto's holding him up. And then you see the pimp off to the side, pointing the gun. Bah! Actually, he had a silencer on the gun, so it made it sound like a muffled, stifled sound. And Anthony Quinn turns his head, you see the bullet hole on the side of his head. And Yaphet Kotto is still holding his hand, and that's how they closed the movie, which was very intense. They closed the movie. I mean, literally, I got chills just saying it. As Anthony Quinn's character started to fall, Yaphet Kotto was holding his hand, and the camera zoomed in, or the camera panned down and was holding on their hands, and all you saw was this, and he's holding his hand as he falls. Now, again, you thought that they had a hate relationship, but their relationship grew, and they respected each other, and they acted accordingly. They had each other's backs, which I thought was very dope. It was a sad story. It was indeed, but it's a life story. It's one of those things. This is one of those. Danny Glover, I'm getting too old for this stuff. The Anthony Quinn character was getting ready to retire, so this is what some of their beef was. Is he was like, "You want my job?" telling Anthony Quinn, Anthony Quinn telling the Yaphet Kotto character, "You want my job? You just want me." He's like, "Yeah, I do want your job, but I'm not going to do it like you do it. I'm gonna do it this way. So if it comes to me, it comes to me." That was their conversation, and I believe that that was when Anthony Quinn gained that much more respect for the Yaphet Kotto character. But when Anthony Quinn's character got shot, it was a very touching moment, and they ended it, and that was the end of that. So I have to give respect to this movie across 110th Street, even though it had its, tropes, the tropiest of trope movies, but at the same time, this is black cinema in the 70s and 80s. They were full of tropes. There were things that people in black communities could relate to. Honky pig, sucker chump, all that type of shit. That's what people would relate to in the 70s and 80s, and they would go to the movies to see that shit so they could laugh and have fun, and the black guy wins. We love on that. We love on that. You know what I'm saying? Say, Jim, you a jive turkey. Fool, you know who you dealing with? Exactly. Exactly. All of those things are what we went to the movies for. It gives you a feeling of empowerment when you see things like that. And that's something in itself. When you are people who live and feel disempowered, when you can go into cinema and see something that reflects you and the way you think and how you would like your existence to be. Some of it far-fetched, some of it not so far-fetched. It's all in your mind. Whatever you can manifest in your mind, you can manifest in reality. Deep jewel, drop the jewel on y'all. Y'all wasn't ready for that, yo. Floyd House Flicks, Blacks in Cinema Sunday. I apologize for the lateness. Will not happen often. Such is life. Things happen and you have to make allowances for things like this. But I appreciate you guys for sticking in there with me. We'll be back on next Sunday, Blacks in Cinema Sunday. We'll be doing it. I don't know what we're going to watch. But we're going to watch something dope and then we're going to talk about it. All right? Floyd House Flicks. Don't forget, likes, subscribe, share, hit the bell notification, do all of those YouTube things that you always do. And I appreciate it. 100 subscribers. I'm slowly creeping my way to 100 subscribers. I have a plan to put together a gift box for anybody on that 100 subscribers list. I'm going to randomly select a person from the 100 subscribers list, and I will contact them and send them a gift box of movies. Trust when I say that. That's what we're doing. Floyd House Flicks, Blacks in Cinema Sunday. I will see you guys next week. In fact, I'll see you before that. I will see you Monday for the physical media commute for Floyd House Flicks. You already know what it is. Everybody have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Be well, be safe, love yourself. Salute. All is well. Floyd House Flicks.